And welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football, presented by our good friends over at SportBuff. If you use the promo code Owls Flightdeck10 at checkout, you'll save 10% off the entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, save the code, save 10%, and support local. I'm Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on X. Make sure you shoot me a follow over at Cliffy D if you want. Or don't. I don't care. Well, you did.
I did.
Be like Tim. Tim was intelligent. Be like Tim.
To be like Tim. How was your weekend, buddy? Obviously, second week in a road trip. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Heading to the big smoke for a regular season game for the first time for me. Wow, and who knows how long. It's been a while since I've been to Toronto for a regular season game.
It was probably back in the Skydome days or Rogers Center days, right?
Yeah, I'll never call it Rogers Center. There's no way in hell. There's no way. And I think what's funny is we've had the running joke, and I know this is more or less to what we'll be talking about after the game. You know, the biggest running joke of things happening during Al's bye weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll get to that.
Yes, because the Alouettes currently are on a bye week. But before we get there, we've got a football game to discuss and other things to discuss as well. So
Yes, sir.
Let's do it to it.
Yep. So going into the game this week, the Owls had the chance to clinch the home playoff game for the Eastern Final. All they had to do was to either A, win, or B, hope that Saskatchewan were to beat Ottawa in the game prior to that on CTV. And coming into this game, the Alouettes did find out after Ottawa did lose to Saskatchewan that they did clinch the Eastern Final, and they did clinch the Eastern Division for the first time since 2012. Unlike what happened in Edmonton last year, where basically the exact same thing occurred, if it was just for a playoff spot, the Alouettes did not win this one. Alouettes do lose to the Toronto Argonauts, Cliff, by the score of 37-31. And I think my first question to you, Cliff, is anybody who tuned into the game, not knowing what happened at it, would have thought that this was an exciting game. It was, but I don't think that the score is really indicative of how this game actually went.
It's really not. But before we get into that, I just have to say one thing. I can't believe that despite leaving for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Trevor Harris inadvertently found a way to help the Montreal Alouettes. Couldn't do that when he was here, per se. But in a roundabout way, thanks to Trevor Harris, the Alouettes were able to clinch first place in the Eastern Division. Go figure. Go figure. But yes, when you look at this game against Toronto that just took place, it's kind of funny because we found out while we were at the tailgate that yes, the Saskatchewan Roughriders did beat the Ottawa Red Blacks, which assured that Montreal was going to host the Eastern Final on November 9th. I should say that. And we're like, okay, great. At least, if nothing else, our travel plans are secure. We don't have to worry about going to a road game to see the Eastern Final because, well, I'm flying out to Vancouver after the Eastern Final. So the fact that that game is at home makes me very, very happy because at least I'll be able to attend the game, try to get a little bit of sleep depending on the outcome of the game. God willing, the Montreal Alouettes will win the Eastern Final and, like me, make their way to Vancouver for the Grey Cup. In that sense, I'm relieved to know that that's where things are at now. At least we have that part of our football voyage figured out. But then during the tailgate, the thought was, okay, does the team know? How are they? Is that going to affect how they're going to play tonight? Did they make a conscious effort to not tell the players or the coaches or anyone like that and let them think that, no, you have to win tonight in order to clinch? I don't know. And we didn't find out until after the fact what the real story was. But I mean, if you're to go based on the play that you ended up seeing, was this an exciting game? Was this a thrilling game despite the loss. I guess in a lot of ways it was, but it was one of those scenarios again, Tim, where I felt like getting there was not half the fun. It felt like the journey wasn't worth getting to the destination. It's or I forget how the phrase goes, but I mean, it's just felt like this Alouettes team did enough to be competitive. Could they have won the game potentially if a couple more things went their way? But in a lot of respects, I feel like this team just they had the opportunity to really make a statement and just came up short.
But I was gonna interject and say, were you thinking of knowing is half the battle?
Oh,
G.I. Joe.
oh, there's a reference that also will age us
Yeah,
terribly, but
very much so. Very much so. Just like the more you know thing was. Anyways, um, yeah, and by the way, you referenced it. Go ahead and at least let the fans know what did we find out when it came to the players if they were or were not told because I know you just mentioned it.
yeah. As I said, we asked a couple of the players, and no, they were not told beforehand that the Rough Riders won the game, which essentially clinched the division for the Alouettes. It was actually when I was speaking with Wesley Sutton in post game, and I asked him about it. They said, "No, we weren't told." But former Alouette and now current member of the Toronto Argonauts, Brian Harlemana, he was actually the one that told Wesley that, yeah, y'all clinched. I was like, oh, okay. And he, Wesley claims that that didn't affect how they played. They approached this with the mindset of we're going in here to win and we're going to clinch the division by winning this game. That was their mindset, and that's how they prepared, and that was the focus throughout the game. Like, to what extent? Like, again, I don't know. Once if any other players on the Argos had told the other Alouettes that the Eastern Division was theirs, so to speak. I'm not sure. I can only go by what Wesley Sutton told me, and he said he didn't personally change anything as far as his approach to the game, or if the team felt like they had to take their foot off the pedal to not get injured or do anything that's going to cause any sort of you know anything bad to happen to the team. Essentially, like you know
Right.
what last thing you want to do is, especially knowing that you've clinched the division, you don't want to say the game's meaningless or any of the other games that are going to be coming up are going to be meaningless, because they're not. But at the same time, you don't want to do anything stupid. You don't want to go full force and risk yourself getting injured or anything like that and end up missing the game that you're going to be playing in November. So, uh, to me, though, based on what we saw in the field, though, I mean, it just felt like I kind of felt like they knew, and at the same time was kind of making a bit of a business decision to, yeah, play hard, but at the same time, don't do anything reckless. I think that would be a fair way to describe how the action we saw from the Alouettes this past Saturday.
That's a fair assessment. We really didn't know. I mean, we've known about the struggles that the Alouettes have had recently when it's come to offense in general. Um, the last 2 games, the Alouettes have had huge defensive plays which were able to get them on the board and get them going. People need to remember too, even with this loss here, the Alouettes have gone 2-2-1 in their last 5. But the problem is that none of these games have been pretty. They really have not. And it was just the exact same thing for the Alouettes, to basically 2 games in a row where they did absolutely nothing in the first quarter. 2 weeks ago, I think it was one first in Ottawa, it was 1 first down and 25 yards in the first quarter. This one, it was 1 first down and I think around 50 yards in the first quarter. Yeah, and I think they led in both after 1. But
Yeah,
it's just in general overall, I just did real quick math here, Cliff. In the first quarter of this year, Cliff, the Alouettes have only scored 81 total points. 81. They've only scored over 10 twice. And
wow.
the other issue too is because as we know, when the Alouettes get the ball back after, especially they will go try to get the ball after half. To get the ball first, try to put more points on the board. The problem with that is, Cliff, is that the third quarter is the Alouettes' worst quarter scoring. They've only scored 64 points.
Yeah,
That's a huge issue. If you're behind, you wanna be able to come out strong in the second half. But the problem is you need to get started. And that's again what happened this time around. You know, thank goodness for the interception and then the touchdown to Walter Fletcher.
Mhm.
But that was really it for the first quarter. And again, they led. But the problem was after that. Had nothing to do with the rain, even though if what I don't know what it is about you and I in rain games. It sat in the rain in the first quarter. It stopped. You know, the BMO field, the turf with BMO Field was still atrocious, as I mentioned on Flight Deck Live when we were up in the press box.
Yeah,
It was still atrocious, but both teams had to play on it.
that's right. You can't use that as an excuse because yeah, the Argos, you know, maybe they might be a little more accustomed to it because that's their home field, but at the same time, you still have to play through it. You're just as susceptible to the mistakes that Montreal suffered as well. It could have just as easily happened to the Argonauts, and it really does just come down to okay, if you make a mistake, how are you going to respond to it? How are you going to correct it? And Toronto made their fair share of mistakes as well, and they found a way. They got it figured out, and that's the reason why they walked away with the victory. And it was funny because this game really was a tightly contested affair for the most part. I just feel though that they were simply outclassed. Like the Alouettes were simply outclassed in a lot of ways by the Argos. I mean, the Argos had much better plays. They had the more breakout plays, and a couple of times when you thought that they were done and the drive was going to stop, no, it keeps on going. There was at least one or two times where Chad Kelly just kind of shoveled the ball into someone's hands, and just when you thought that the Alouettes just made a great tackle on Chad Kelly and got a sack, no, he got rid of the ball and someone else decided to go for a 10, 15, 20-yard scamper and get a fresh set of downs. That happened at least. There's at least two plays like that, two big chunk plays like that really I think took everybody by surprise. Even the Argos fans, I think, were just like, "Wait, what? What? No! Oh my God! First down! Okay!" And kept on going. But this was a very unique game in a lot of ways. First of all, it doesn't get much more unique than the fact that Lirim Hairulahu, kicker for the Argonauts, set a personal best in successful field goals with eight. 8 field goals were made.
Argos record and ties the CFL record. Yep.
Now, you could look at it one of two ways. One, that's 24 points, essentially, that the Argos scored, or basically Hairulahu scored. That could have been a lot worse. That could have been those easily could have been touchdowns, but credit to the Montreal defense for the most part to be able to keep the Argos to those field goals. Mind you, though, 8 field goals is a lot to give up. Any way you slice it, 24 points on the board. That's a lot to like, and that does fall in the defense. That yes, you prevent them from scoring touchdowns. If those were touchdown drives, forget it. We'd be looking at an Arena League score. But
Mhm.
I mean, it's still 24 points is 24 points. I mean, any way you slice it, you still allowed 24 points to be scored thanks to one player alone. I mean, that's definitely not something to hang your hat on.
No, it is not. And I'm trying to remember where you said this. If it was during while we were talking to somebody, because we had a unique perspective, which I know you'll want to give props to here in a couple of minutes, where we were able to spend the second half at the game.
Mm.
Um, or if you mentioned, I don't think you mentioned it on live, but over the past season plus, we've been calling. It's been uh, it's been a positive to call Cody Fajardo consistently consistent Cody. And I know you said recently in the past week that maybe that term is kind of becoming derogatory because ev yes, he may be throwing for 200 regularly 250 yards, maybe a touchdown, no interceptions, um, and missing maybe 7 passes. Problem is that there are no touchdowns. There's not enough touchdowns.
Yeah.
I'd be happy for Cody to go, like a 19 for 40 for 3 touchdowns and in a win. I'd be happy with that. I mean, we're lucky to have a guy who, you know, it's not a Trevor Harris who dinks and dunks.
Mhm.
Cody is good with what he does, but the problem is as of late, something just seems to be off, especially since he's come back from his injury.
Mhm.
Um, or was it something that was more nagging him from last week when he pulled whatever he pulled, or hurt
Mhm.
whatever he hurt when he was doing that touchdown, that touchdown run?
Yeah.
I
And
don't
it's
know.
also and it's also leading people to ask, why isn't Davis Alexander playing then? Because when he subbed in for Cody when he was injured, Davis played outstanding football. You're absolutely right, he did. This still does remain Cody Fajardo's football team. And
Which
honestly,
I have no problem I have no problem with. I understand that there are a lot of people calling for, saying that Davis should start, Davis should start, Davis should start. It's it's Cody Fajardo's team, as you just said.
it is. And I would have made the argument like when Cody came back against Edmonton, it was just before a bye week. I'm personally of the opinion that maybe Davis should have started that game, and then you start Fajardo back after the bye. Okay, but again, Cody got the win against Edmonton, so as long as you're winning, nobody cares, right? Like it doesn't matter how you get there. The fact is, you got there. They don't ask how; they ask by how many, whatever you want to use. But since Fajardo's been back, I mean, he's played well. He's been, as we call him, consistently consistent, Cody. But it's not the kind of consistently consistent where you can look back and say, well, he wasn't flashy and outstanding, but boy, he did a lot of really good things, and the Alouettes got the win. It was more like, yeah, he had one or two holy cow kind of plays, but the rest of it was just kind of doing what he does to get the Alouettes in scoring position, and maybe they get a touchdown, or maybe they get a field goal, or no, it ends up being a 2 and out. And it's almost like he's consistent, but not in the complimentary way that we've been doing it over the past year and a bit. And whether or not it's because he's injured, or if there's something else going on, or if maybe he's just trying too hard to be the hero, because once you win a Grey Cup, that's how people look at you. And the pressure to repeat that, no doubt, is weighing on Cody's mind as well. So I'm trying to see things from his perspective. I'm trying to get a feel for how he's approaching things. I mean, he's saying, obviously, like, in the media, he's saying and doing all the right things, and it's obvious that the team has his back, and he's going to go to war with these guys and all that wonderful stuff. But I can't help but notice over the past couple of weeks that, yeah, Cody has not looked like himself. I mean, he's definitely a gamer. He's definitely got that warrior spirit about him, but at the same time, the mechanics seem off. Like the what we expect out of Cody, we're not seeing that nearly enough. And I think that's the part that I find troublesome, to the point where I can completely understand why fans are saying, then why isn't Davis Alexander playing? Look what he did in that time that he relieved Cody. And it's hard to argue that as well. We're big believers in Davis Alexander too, and definitely think he's shown that he deserves to be a starter in this league. But at the expense of Cody Fajardo, not so much, because as we've stated, this is Cody Fajardo's football team. But this is one of those this is a really tough problem. I mean, I can't say it's one of those good problems to have. It's still a problem though. And how are they going to solve it? How are they going to figure it out? And truthfully, I don't think, unless Cody, during this bye week, gets himself right, gets himself back on track, and is ready to go for the home stretch, so to speak. Uh, I truly don't know where he's at and how he can get back to being the Cody that we know and love and saw in 2023.
I think it's the matter of getting back to the offense that we saw in that long stretch at the end of the season. Things weren't perfect. Yeah, have been perfect this year, and I think I said it last week that the Owls still have not played a perfect game. And mind you, this isn't just all on Cody. Yes, we do understand that there have been many issues when it comes to the ins and outs of the wide receivers. You know, uh, Matt coming back, Matt getting hurt, Tyson dominating the league to start the season and then getting, unfortunately getting hurt. The guys have stepped up. I get that.
Mhm.
But as we've seen too, it's just more than Cody. It's the defense.
It's
And it's
defense.
also the O-line because right now our rushing is atrocious. Our rushing is absolutely atrocious. We are still last in the league in total rushing yards. An 11-win team that that won the division is last in the league in rushing. And I am trying to find out some information, try to get some information from Steve Daniel because my that blows my mind in itself. But also the defense. And I am so tired. I understand right now we need to just move on that it's most likely that Sean Lemon will not be back. We do not need, especially in the opponent that we were playing last week. We don't need TSN to say, "Oh, maybe their run defense would be a little bit better if Sean Lemon had just happened to be there." If
I
anybody
mean,
knows what I'm commenting on this side, that's all I'm going to say because there are certain things that we really don't need to hear about. If one thing is being suggested, why aren't others?
mhm.
Anyways, but
No,
still
I
go ahead, go
think
ahead.
you take a look at this entire front seven on defense, and you could pretty much lay blame to everybody on there because whether or not Sean Lemon was going to be a part of this, like he would not be. I'm sorry, he's not the magic fix. I mean, as awesome a player as he was for the Alouettes, and yeah, it's still unfortunate that he's not going to be a part of things going forward. That's already been established, but he wasn't. It wasn't just simply a matter of him being the magic pill or the quick fix to the pass rushing woes for the Montreal Alouettes. You've got other guys on this team that, for the most part, are playing well, but there's still a lot of things that are just not clicking. I mean, I take a look at pretty much, as I said, the front seven. Like you got the defensive line and the linebackers. When they're blitzing, I find they're missing a lot of the tackles. That was one thing I couldn't help but notice, and especially too, and that's where you find the holes that these opposing running backs are able to easily hit as a result of that. Like they're going to for like the home run shot, if you will, like kind of like how Cody goes for. It feels like he's always going for the home run shot, trying to hit that long bomb, hit somebody with that long bomb touchdown pass. I feel like this Alouettes defense, for the most part, they're trying to hit that same home run shot, except this time it's blow past the offensive line and get to the quarterback before he can get rid of the ball, or stop the running back dead in his tracks. And if they don't do it, you only have one chance to do it. And if you miss hard. And we saw that numerous times against Toronto. I mean, there was a lot of opportunities for Chad Kelly to make plays happen simply because he was able to survive that initial rush. Like it could have just been something simple, like just a little deke, and all of a sudden he's got all the time and space in the world to complete a pass, whether he's going to dink and dunk it or take a shot downfield. And more often than not, he was able to do that spectacularly. I mean, love him or hate him, I mean, the guy knows how to play quarterback. Like he was able to do what was necessary to get the Argos in scoring range. And yes, more often than not, came away with more field goals and touchdowns, but he still was able to move the chains. He and his offense were still able to make things happen against this fearsome Alouettes defense, which lately, I hate to say it, but they haven't looked so fearsome lately. They haven't looked like those monsters that we saw in the first half of the season. Like it just feels like they too are missing something or something off with them. Like it's not that you don't have that same fear that you had earlier in the season. Like earlier this year they were looking like world beaters, and now they're just it almost feels like they're struggling to keep up with the opposing offense. And to me, like this is not the time of year to find out. Oh, maybe we don't have that right mix. Maybe we don't have that pass rush and those blitzers that are able to go and make life miserable for the opposing quarterback. I mean, this is who you've got, especially now that the trade deadline is finished. Like if you were going to go out and find another piece to add to that window's closed now. Like this is what you've got. Like what you have on your roster is what you have right now. And if this isn't the right mix, then something's terribly wrong here.
obviously, getting a piece like Loa Ugalak back, it's only his second game. He needs to get back into the groove of things, obviously, because him being in the NFL for as while as he was.
Mhm.
But it's true. The run defense has just been absolutely porous. I mean, the Owls gave up, Cliff, 234 rushing yards last week to Toronto, to
Yeah.
6 players. That was the last time the team allowed more yardage was to Winnipeg on October 12th, 2019.
Mm.
240 yards. Oh, a fun fact, by the way. Team record, which also still happens to be the CFO record, is the Alouettes gave up 468 yards on October 10th, 1960 to Ottawa.
Yikes.
Mind you, passing was different back then.
Just a little bit.
Now, there's not to say, as I said, there's still things that need to be fixed, and hopefully, this is their last bye week, so bye buys.
Actually, no,
Um,
it's not their last bye week.
it's their last regular season bye week.
There. Okay. There you go.
Thank you for the correction. Undefeated, unbeaten. Um, but again, it's 3 games left. I'm sure one that people, I remember last year, Coach Moss said, "Don't worry about what happened in the past in BC. We know what happened, but we know who Toronto who we are playing in the last 3 games."
Yes.
And you look at again, there were positives. There were positives in this game. I mean, Cole's speaker, man,
Mm.
that's what got. Nobody expected this Alouettes team to be tied at halftime. Come on. If you're telling me that you can honestly say that, you're lying to yourself.
The way
Because
that, yeah.
I did not expect them to be tied at 22 at halftime. But what a
And
comeback. They come back by 12.
yep. Yeah, they got things figured out, and that's why, while Toronto was content to settle for field goals for the most part, Montreal was able to score thanks to not just Walter Fletcher as a result of that interception by Deontay Ruffin, but James Letcher Jr. decided to make good on a promise he made to yours truly in Ottawa 2 weeks ago. At post game, I said to James, like I know you already broke one off in Saskatchewan, but I think you're due for another one. And what better place to do it than the place you did it last in Beano Field? Like last year at the Eastern Final, you returned one. You made a house call there. I think you're due to have another one. He's like, I got you. Don't worry, I got you. And sure enough, as I said on Flight Deck Live, he got us. An absolutely fantastic return that I think helped already kickstart Montreal to get back into this game and make this a more competitive affair. So
They get the
kudos
Cole
to
Speaker touchdown too. A 3-play drive to Cole Speaker. Basically, it was Cole Speaker's drive.
and,
Him and
and,
Cody.
and listen, as much as I just finished talking about how Cody needs to maybe cool it with some of these home run shots, the one he threw to Speaker, not Spiker,
Yes.
was absolutely tremendous. I mean, that was just absolutely perfectly placed ball right into the hands of Speaker, and scoring at that point was just elementary for him, like just a formality at that point. It was
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful touchdown pass.
But then the Owls could not stop Toronto on the ensuing thing. They kicked to tie it going in a half. Owls, as I was talking before, Owls get the ball back, start the second half, and do nothing. And do nothing. And
Which,
again,
and I hate
time
to
of
say it,
possession.
that's when you talk about consistently consistent, that too, unfortunately, has become consistently consistent, because this is the third, fourth, fifth game in a row that they've done that. Go 2-and-out to start the second half.
Yeah. And time of possession was atrocious in Calgary. It was better they were leading slightly for Ottawa, but this one too, Toronto just controlled the time of possession. They had 10 more minutes than the Alouettes.
Mhm.
And it's, you know, y- you gotta have more longer drives. That's the thing. In order for the Alouettes need to go on a run to finish this season,
Mhm.
you know? we've gone into it before with the Alouettes. We've seen what's happened before with the Alouettes going into going in the East Final. They've not won all of them. They've not won all of them to go to
This
the
is
Grey
true.
Cup. So
That's
they
it.
need to. It needs to be a huge statement these last 3 games. The defense has done well. Darnell Sankey is a madman when it comes to getting tackles, man. He is on the ball every single game. You
Hmm.
know, not getting as many sacks, but the Owls did get some sacks this past weekend. We got 2. So again, it's just a matter of shoring up things that need to be shored up. Cody did go 20-29, 225, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. That 1 interception was on that last drive
Yeah.
where they were down by 6.
Yeah.
Leading rusher was Walter Fletcher with 44 yards, Cody with 22, Dominic Davis with 2, but Dominic Davis had issues early in the game when it came to short yardage plays. One was not made because it seemed like a weird snap, and then one that was completely fumbled. I don't know where that ball went.
Yeah. But
I swear it was like the way that it came out from the hands of the snapper, it was like, are they trying to do the wildcat? Were they trying to get it to somebody else? Um,
yeah. And that first
I
that first fumble too, the Alouettes actually got saved by a penalty against Toronto.
mhm.
But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
but the second time
Uh,
around, that no.
yeah. Cole Speaker led the team with 99 yards and a touchdown. He was targeted 4 times, 3 catches. I think 2 in the first half, and then only 1 target in the second. After that, it was both KJG and Reggie White Jr. Spectacular catch by Reggie White, by the way.
Oh
40
my goodness.
yards for the day. Uh, Walter Fletcher had that 1 touchdown, as we mentioned before. He had 9 yards. Tyler Snead had 25. Charleston Rambo, which seemed to be in pretty much of really not much of a thought at all this game, which is good because they're spreading it between the other wide receivers. He had 15. So again, stuff is there, and Jose Maltos's his streak of consecutive field goals was broken.
Unfortunately.
So
But
yeah,
it just
so Sean White's team record is still safe.
still safe for now. But this will just give Maltos a chance to start a new streak. So
So to wrap this up, dude. I mean, what else can be done? Because what Owls have clinched going into their last 3 games. Thanksgiving at home at BC, 4 days later, 5 days later, and then Winnipeg, which most likely, I'm guessing we will see. It will probably will be another full price regular season preseason game.
especially if because Winnipeg I think can clinch the Western Final this weekend. I think if they win and Saskatchewan loses, which I don't see happening necessarily, but in theory, if that does come to be, then yes, Winnipeg would actually clinch the Western Final. And yeah, you have to believe that last home game for the Alouettes against Winnipeg, as you said, will be a glorified preseason game. You're going to see like practice squad for both clubs,
I
and
hate that. I hate that.
it's going to be. It's not going to be pretty.
No,
Let's just leave it at that.
no. As I mentioned before we get to the news and notes and stuff that happened, I know, as I said before, you wanted to just say a few things, because as I said, most people don't know that we had a great seats for the second half um, for that game. But I know you wanted to, as I said, I know you wanted to say a few things, and also we had talked to a few people post game too.
We sure did. I do have to give a major shout out to Argo's PA announcer, Adam Goss. Uh, we've known Adam for a couple of years now, and you want to talk about one of the solid stand up dudes in the CFL family. Adam is that 100%. I mean, yes, he works for the Argos. He is their PA guy. He's their hype guy. He's that booming voice that you hear if you're watching Argos home games. You know if you know who Adam is, you know he's just a magnanimous personality. loves his football, loves his Argos, and also loves the CFL in general. Like you'll see him at Grey Cup, you'll see him going to other games and things like that. He just absolutely loves football, especially Argos football. We've gotten to know Adam, as I said, and he said, I got to see you guys. You're coming to Toronto for the game. I want to see you guys. I'm like, okay, great. Where can we meet up? It's like, come on up to the Sky Deck. I'm like, the what? The Sky Deck. This is where that's where I do my thing. I'm like, well, I don't want to interrupt you doing your work. No, no, no. Come on up. Come on. It's good. It's good. So we take the elevator up to the press box area at BMO Field. Make a slight left, and we go out to what's basically like a concourse. It almost feels like. And sure enough, on a folding table, all set up, is Adam doing his thing. And it's great to see him again. We hadn't seen him since Grey Cup, and as I said, always a blast to spend time with Adam. I thought we were just going to go up, say a quick hello during halftime, and head back down to our seats. But we were just talking and talking, and then while he's doing his job, of course, he's not letting his duties go as PA announcer. Like he's interjecting that into our conversations as well. So as we're talking though, like the games getting back underway, and it's like okay, well we're gonna head back to our seats. Like no, hang out, stick around, it's cool. I'm like, are you sure? I don't want to. No, it's all good. So you and I, Tim, we all of us, we in our group, we ended up staying and watching the game from that vantage point, like the spotter's view, if you will. Like basically, kind of like watching the game from the press box, except that it's an open air concourse, so to speak, overseeing BMO Field. And yeah, we ended up watching the entire second half there. Still chatting it up with Adam in between his takes and whatnot. Obviously, we're not, and I even said to him, like, if you want us to go, like, just, I don't want to cramp your style. He said, you're good. I promise you're good. So, okay. So we stayed. We watched the entire second half from that vantage point. And I got to say, it was a really cool way to do it. It was really cool to see Adam do his thing as well. And you talk about a pro's pro. I mean, like, as far as getting everybody at BMO Field hyped, getting Argos fans excited out of their seats, making noise, all that, Adam's the one leading the charge, and he just did an absolutely phenomenal job. So my hat's off to him. So good to know him, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a chance to meet Adam, whether it's at BMO Field, because he does check out he swings by the tailgate and says hello to folks there as well at BMO Field. So if you get a chance to see him, definitely say hi to him. He wants to meet you. He wants to get to know you as well. He's just that kind of a guy. And then obviously Grey Cup, he's going to be there. Whether the Argos are there or not, he's going to be there. He's going to be repping his squad. He's going to be there to have a good time, and he wants you to have a good time as well. So definitely, you get a chance, say hello to him. Buy him a beverage because god dang, he deserves it. He does such a phenomenal job as PA announcer for the Argos. I mean, just adds to the atmosphere at BMO Field like nothing else. So hats off to you, Adam. Thank you again for letting us be behind the scenes a little bit. I mean, it just made for a fantastic atmosphere, and it made for a great game day experience at BMO Field.
And obviously, I wish I knew her name, and I wish I knew what her position was. 'Cause I know she had a plethora of stories where she's been in the last Grey Cups since forever. But her and Adam, um, letting 2 guys be able to do what we need to do post-game and allowing us to do a Flight Deck Live from the press box was greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one thing I will say about the Argos organization, and we've dealt with them in the past as well. Like we were at the Eastern Final, and we were able to do Flight Deck Live, basically overlooking BMO Field as well. And they've always been able, they've shown us the love, and they've been willing to accommodate us as well, which we greatly appreciate. So I will say, like, even though it's a rival squad and all that jazz, that doesn't matter. I think it still comes down to everybody's part of the CFL family. Everyone's part of what makes this league so fantastic, and you got to give them their props. You got to give them their flowers, as they say, to just how professional they are and how they make this experience so fantastic for everybody. So once again, from everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, we thank you all at the Toronto Argonauts for accommodating us and letting us do our thing the way we do for Alouettes Nation.
Exactly. Before you continue, we talked about what we were able to see after the game and stuff like that, who we spoke with. Want to remind everybody that we are on social media, many places you can find us on the internet. If you want to find our entire archive, you can do so by heading over to www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. From there, you can see all the shows from our 8+ seasons. Also, all of our links will be up there too that we're going to be mentioning here tonight. Um, if you want to see us on other places, you can see us over on X, and that's at Alouettes FL Deck. Uh, that's how you do that. Facebook over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, Instagram and YouTube over at Alouettes Flight Deck. Also, our newest location for at least our post game show streaming of the show. That would be over on Twitch, and that's twitch.tv/Alouettes Flight Deck. If you want to make sure that you catch all of the archives of our audio version, of our video version, and of all the past shows for our companion show, our post game show, Flight Deck Live, you can do so by checking us out over on YouTube. Also, if you're looking to rep some merch of the podcast, and you're getting very close on the window on if you're wanting to have, if you don't have already a cartoon Bird 56 shirt for the second annual meetup on Thanksgiving Monday, try ordering it over at flightdeckgear.ca. I can tell you this though, because it's been no secret since we've been talking about it. There will be some potentially cartoon bird giveaways available at the meetup, so stay tuned. Um, Other than that, it's we appreciate every one of you for listening and letting us do what we want to do.
Yeah, make sure also too, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what we're doing, tell a friend, tell a coworker, tell everybody. If you're following us on X on Facebook, that's great as well. Make sure you hit the notifications as well so that you know that when we do post something, whether it's a new episode of the Flight Deck or Flight Deck Live going live, you'll be notified right away. So make sure you're doing all that for us as well.
Exactly. So we said before, I was mentioning before, the quick break is that we were able to meet up with some of the players and some other people post game, and obviously we knew a lot of them were obviously the team was going on buys, but it was still nice to catch up with some of the players like we do normally here in Montreal, and just to be able to find out what's what. And as you said, we're able to find out some of that information about when and if they were told about the Ottawa loss or not. But it was fun. I always thought it's ever since seeing this place last year, it's kind of like a hidden gem if you know type of thing, um, of where the team bus is, and it was just really cool to see who we got to see.
Absolutely. A lot of the players came out, and it's funny, not dejected because of the loss, because losses are going to happen. And yeah, would they have liked to have won and truly been able to say that they clinched the Eastern Division? Absolutely, they would. But I still think there's still a lot of belief that this team is on the right track. It's just simply a matter of buckling down and getting it done when it counts, especially with these next three games coming up that have no meaning in the standings whatsoever, but still do have meaning in the sense that you want to finish strong. You want to show that you're dominant. You want to show that you are what your record says you are. And that was with the players that we spoke to. I think that was a lot of that feeling was this, that, listen, we know what we have to do. We just got to get it done. You just got to be able to execute. And truthfully, that's kind of how you got to look at it. It's not fun losing, obviously, especially since this is their first road loss in over a year, if you can believe that.
Mm.
Interestingly enough, the last road loss was at BMO Field. So maybe this was kind of a poetic. I mean, if you're going to lose on the road, maybe this was a poetic way to do it. But yeah, it was good to chat with a couple of guys afterwards and just get a feeling of what's going on. Uh, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that in addition to talking with a lot of the players for the Alouettes, there was one Toronto Argonaut that we spoke to that we've been actually very excited to talk to ever since we had him on this show, believe it or not. That would be one John Boss, who we had just before he was drafted by the Argonauts here. So you folks had a chance to get to know him and get ready for his journey to becoming a professional football player. Once we found out he was drafted by the Argos, we sent him a message saying, "Listen, we don't care. We got your back. We want to see you do well. And if it happens to be in Toronto, then so be it. And if we have a chance, we got to get together. We got to link up. So it's kind of funny. The Argos came here during the preseason, and yes, everybody on the team, even if they're going to end up getting cut, they would have made the trip. I don't know why we didn't have the presence of mind to think of that at that point, because technically John was coming to Montreal, and it just, I guess, slipped my mind anyway. So it happens. Then, of course, practice roster players, where John is right now, is on the practice roster for the Argos. Practice roster players don't always travel with the team unless there's a possibility they might have to play. So when the Argos came to Montreal in July, John wasn't a part of that. When it was established that we were going to BMO Field for this game against the Argos, I made it a point to reach out to John and said, listen, we're going to be there at the game to see the Alouettes play. We got to link up. He's like, all right, let's do it. Sure enough, after we were done a Flightdeck Live, I sent him a quick text. I said, yo, we're going to be down by the buses where the Alouettes are. Can you come? Can you drop by and say hello? Funny enough, he was actually on the bus going home. I said, you know what? I'll come back. He actually got off the bus, made his way, returned to BMO Field, came out to that same area where the Alouettes players were, and we finally got to meet. And let me tell you, as awesome as it was to have him on the show and talk about his his journey becoming a professional football player, just before the draft and all that stuff, to actually finally meet him and be able to shake his hand and get to know him as a professional football player, absolutely amazing. I mean, if ever there's a chance that the Alouettes can get his services, I say do it. I say go for it, because we want him to be a part of this team. He would be such a great fit here as far as we're concerned. And I think there's a little part of him that wouldn't be too mad about coming here as well. So, I mean, it could theoretically happen. I mean, you could technically sign someone off their practice roster. So in theory, Danny Machocha could sign John Boss from the practice roster of the Argos, but then he would have to start for the Alouettes, which would be an interesting thing. But listen, if ever it works out that he could end up coming to Montreal, Alouettes Nation would absolutely love to have this man on the team. But I'm so thrilled that we were able to finally link up, meet in person, and wow, I'm just so happy for him. He's learning and growing, and he's getting all sorts of great coaching in Toronto. So I'm very happy about that for him. And it was just great to finally meet in person. So, John, once again, thank you so much for coming out to meet Tim and I. It was definitely awesome to see you. And yeah, obviously, we wish nothing but the best for you going forward.
Oh, it's CFL family, and if anybody saw the photo that we took over on Instagram, yeah, I was the small one.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Yeah, I was like, "Wow." But yeah, that's CFL. That's what it's all about, and it's funny that a lot of the players that we talked to have been, quote, unquote, "friends of the podcast." A lot of the ones that we were talking to were friends of the podcast. Um, a little bit of news came out about this week about the Alouettes. Uh, Today, as Cliff
Despite
mentioned
being on
earlier
a
in the
bye,
show,
we should mention
uh,
that.
yes, that the trade deadline was today, and usually you don't think of much when it comes to the CFL. It's not like Major League Baseball. It's not like the NFL. It's not like it's not like hockey. It's not.
NHL, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the Alouettes were actually involved in a trade,
The only
and
trade.
huh?
The only trade made by any team in the CFL.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. So the Alouettes trade Canadian running back Joshua Antwi to the BC Lions for a third-round draft pick in 2025.
Mhm.
We understand. I mean, yes, he hasn't the running game really for 2 and 3 for him and STE really have not been much this year. It's really been Fletch, which I get.
Mhm.
Um, but trading a Canadian, a ratio breaker, and in general, a great dude because we spoke with Ashley Jeshwin. It's nice that we were able to actually see Jeshwin on Saturday before he was traded because we had an idea that we'd wanted to do with Jeshwin here on the pod, and it could still technically it still could come to fruition, but it would be him as a BC Lion. Um, but I'll
Yeah.
leave it at that. But what were your thoughts? Because I know I sent it to you. It's the first time you saw when you saw the press release, and I sent you a text. What were your thoughts when you heard that Jeshurun had been traded?
I mean, I really wasn't expecting any trades at all by anybody just because, I mean, technically all 9 teams are still in contention for the playoffs. So, I mean, I didn't think anyone was going to do anything major, like nothing to upset the apple cart, so to speak. And I admit I'm a little surprised to see Jeshwin getting traded simply because, I mean, he's been such an integral part of this football team. I mean, he was a big one of the big parts of this championship run that they were on last year was because of Jeshwin's ability not just to run the ball, but also to punt the ball. Believe it or not, yes, that would be the wizard, if you will, of the onside punt, Jeshwin Antwi. Uh, yeah, I
The messy of onside punts.
yes, yes. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, this running game for the Alouettes, as you said, it's been Walter Fletcher and then basically table scraps for Jeshua Antwi and Sean Thomas Erlington. That's just the way it is right now. That's how it's got to be. And unfortunately, Jeshua just hasn't been able to get on the field really to showcase what he can do. And it's unfortunate because we know how talented he is. We know what he's been able to do, not just as a running back, but also on special teams as well. He's been an absolutely great contributor. And yes, he's a pending free agent. At the end of this year, he was going to test free agency, and could Montreal have kept the services? Maybe. It's hard to say, but I mean, especially if you're not getting a whole lot of football action, it kind of makes it hard to showcase what you can do and to potentially earn more money. So I guess with Danny Machocha thinking, okay, well, if this guy's going to walk in February, I may as well try and get something for him. And as it turns out, he ends up getting a third round pick in the 2025 CFL draft. So now Montreal has 2 third round picks for the draft. I mean, once again, chance to restock with another Canadian, but then this becomes another developmental project potentially, obviously with a third round player. It's good. It's kind of interesting actually when you think about it, because we've talked about the 3-headed monster in the past of William Stanback, Jeshwin Antwi, William Stanback, Walter Fletcher, and Jeshwin Antwi, who arguably was the best running back room in the Canadian Football League last year. But as a result, William Stanback goes to the BC Lions in free agency, and now Jeshwin Antwi goes to the BC Lions via trade. So the BC Lions actually have 2 of the 3-headed monster in their lineup now, and it's kind of crazy to think about when you look at it. But I mean, with Montreal sort of abandoning the run for better or for worse, I mean, it is what it is. But it's still, it doesn't make it any less unfortunate because, as you've said, Jeshua is just an absolutely fantastic human being, and yeah, I guess the Alouettes have made their decision, and it's going to be Fletch and STE, and we'll go from there.
Somebody. Yeah, once camp start, once practice starts up again, it'll be interesting to see who potentially fills that third hole because we're still we know Michael Herzog was on the roster, but yet he was released on the 27th, even though he currently is still listed on the Alouettes practice roster. We're trying to get confirmation on what's what.
You also have Stevie Scott, who did actually
Yeah,
look really good in the preseason and is a running back. But then again,
not a
too,
Canadian, but not a Canadian. Yeah,
not a Canadian. So there is that sort of factor to consider as well.
yeah, but obviously, yeah, Jeshwin is ball out, dude. We're gonna miss. Well, obviously, we'll miss you, and we'll miss you here, and um,
Yeah.
if
And
you end up coming back, be it for free agency or however, Alouettes Nation will welcome you back. Once an Alouette, always an Alouette.
yeah. And say hi to Vernon and William for us.
As we were talking before during the game, it's about the game last week. A guy who balled out and had a hell of a game, led the team in receiving yards last week. It's kind of funny that he does what he does and he gets rewarded kind of. The Alouettes re-upped Cole Speaker speaker for 2 more years.
Mm,
It's great to see Cole's gonna be staying in the nest for another 2.
yeah, and also new. We can also add to the title, add to him the title friend of the show because he was on 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and we saw him post game too, actually. Yep.
Yeah, and so happy for him because I mean he's really come into his own. He came into his own last year for sure, and has just been doing outstanding work in 2024. So yes, very very wise move on the part of Danny Machocha to extend his contract. So yeah, for the next 2 years, turn that speaker up loud.
We have quite a most of our starting wide receiver core signed for the next 2, 1, 2, 3 years. You know,
And in one
if you put
case,
Max
even 4 years.
yeah, I mean, Max case 4. Exactly. So, obviously, it's great for that. Alouettes, started their, 2025, season ticket member drive, and, sometimes this can be a very contentious thing when it comes to Alouettes Nation, obviously, and I think with any team, really, because it's a matter of obviously, the the better you do, I think it even with the team potentially making increases to the ticket prices, it really doesn't hurt as much or sting as much as if a team would lose, X amount in a row to end the season or has had X amount of losing seasons in a row, and they still get the prices still get raised. But that's what the Alouettes did. They did announce their 2025 season ticket structure. Very interesting to say the least. First, I wanted to make sure that we got all the correct information about what's happening with the team and why there were some increases. And we'll go over some of the more unique situations that the Alouettes have raised the prices for 2025 and what the ramifications can mean. But I did reach out to Mark Wayman, Alouettes president, to try to find out some information. And he did tell me, Cliff, the following, because I asked him specifically about 2024 versus 2025. So he was able to tell me regarding the prices. He says, while on average, our prices remained mostly flat last year, with a few categories noting a slight increase and others even decreasing. This year, we have introduced moderate price increases ranging from 3 to 5%, depending on the section, which compares very favorably with the inflation rates over the last few years. For transparency, our section where we sit in Y1, they went up, our prices went up 3.6% year over year. So
Which is, I hate to use this term, but consistently consistent.
that's yeah, consistently consistent. Um, some there were some very interesting, really interesting modifications to the way that that the prices were done in stadium for this season. And I think that the better way to do it is just to go ahead and show everybody. If you are not watching this show, I will be able to. We'll post. We'll explain it on socials. But specifically, Cliff, are the following sections. I mean, you and I talked about a pregame, but still, one of the main things is specifically over on the south section itself, Cliff, where section U2 does have a cheaper option now at the top of top of the stadium. And other than V2 and T2 having two price tiers like they were last year, or sorry, this year, there are now three pricing structures where the lower price blue section has 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 bled over into V2 and T2, which is basically giving it a cheaper, giving it a cheaper price. Um, from there, as you can see, and this is one of the ones that I was saying is a little bit of contention here, folks, is if you look at the section specifically for all the lower sections on the south side that are covered that had the overhang, T1, U1, W1, X1, Y1, Z1. It is um, all of the sections, the higher price sections, have bled over into the upper portions of that of those sections itself. And this is one of the things that I'd ask Mark about specifically, and I got a little bit more clarification on it. So what Mark was able to tell me was that um, specifically that yes, for those sections, for the top parts of those actual sections at Percival Molson, the higher price tiers have bled over into the lower price tiers. Okay. So it is, I had clarification that it is the first five, excuse me, the last 5 rows of each section on the south side underneath the overhang are going to have a price increase. But the price increase is only going to be for new clients. Season ticket holders will maintain the same price category as they always have. So it seems that everybody who is a current season ticket holder will be grandfathered over into these prices. But if you're looking to get season tickets brand new in these sections, because of the overhang for the first time ever, these prices, these 5 rows, are going to have a higher pricing structure than they have in years past. And I thought it was very funny that they did this, considering that we've had the we've had the new section of Personal Molson around since 2010, and this is the first time that the team is actually taking advantage of this. Um, Also, part of this, it has the U2 section. U2, it is going to be carried over, going to be migrating over from the north side over to the top of section U2. And I will admit, seeing how the new sections are V2, U2, and T2 are going to be having cheaper prices. Because if you look, usually they may not be the tickets that may be the most desirable usually, but I think that'll help bringing the lower prices into some of those seats that people may not like. And if that's the case, um, I'm sure it will be better for the team. But I'm curious to know what you guys think about this pricing tier. Obviously, reach out to us on social media because now knowing this, I mean, as I said, the team is looking to take advantage in increasing these prices, but it is also taking advantage of that. These are if you think about it, uh, myself and the others that are able to sit underneath the overhang on the south side in the one sections. Um, it is kind of a perk. You don't get wet. You don't get wet for these games when there's some major issues when it comes to, um, when it comes to um, when it comes to the weather.
Yeah, the one thing I take from this structure, I guess, is that how you would put, like, I guess, pricing structure?
Or yeah,
I,
the new tiers or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like nothing I've ever seen. Like normally, I'm used to seeing like certain sections are gold, some are silver, bronze, all that jazz. This just looks like a rainbow gone awry. uh,
Well, remember, as I mentioned too, though, is that for the first time since they've had these seats since they built them in 2010, they're actually putting a premium tag on these rows, on the last 5 rows of each of these sections on the lower side, on the south side.
yeah, with the
They're actually taking
common,
they're taking advantage of it. Not that way, not that way, but they're taking advantage of this perk. This is a perk.
yeah, do we call it like a luxury tax of sorts, in the sense that you've got that overhang, which is going to protect you from the elements. And I'll be honest, that's the reason why I like our seats, is because we have that.
Yeah. But as I said, it's something that the Alouettes have never done before, something new. But my plus is that they're taking advantage of those seats in the upper deck that don't really seem to sell that well, and allowing the lower price seats to bleed into the higher prices that usually when they far up in the at the top of the stadium. So I can't complain about that. That to me, that's a smart move. I just found this other one obviously very interesting. But and as I mentioned to everybody, what are your guys' thoughts? Let us know. We're curious to know what you guys think. And again, if you didn't see this on the video version, either A, go over see the video version, or B, we'll make sure that we do try to do some explanation on our socials, right? So
Yeah. And essentially too, if you're not a season ticket holder, uh, obviously when you hear about prices going up, your first inclination is, well, oh my gosh, how much do I how badly do I want to see this game? Like, well, if you've been to a game at all this year, you know the atmosphere is second to none as far as football, like live football goes. So I mean, yeah, winning a Grey Cup too, also you have to expect a little bit of an increase in price. I mean, that's some someone's got to pay Austin Max contracts, someone's got to pay Cody Fajardo and Tyson Philpott's extensions, and so on and so forth. Obviously, it's going to be us.
right.
But I mean, when you if you've been on the fence about being a season ticket holder, hopefully, despite these, what I feel are cost of like like when you make increase like cost of living increases,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see this. I mean, especially with inflation and everything else that's going on and all that. Honestly, folks, the experience at Personal Molson Stadium really is like nothing else. I mean, I highly recommend if you're not if you are a season ticket holder, re up because one, I think you're getting a discount of 30% if you renew before I
Hmm.
think it's November 17th, which is
Yeah.
Grey Cup Sunday. So I mean, what better time than to basically commit to this team going into 2025 and hopefully beyond? This is the time to do it. And if you are on the fence about whether or not you should be getting season tickets, listen, just come to Personal Molson Stadium. Hell, come to the Thanksgiving Day game if you can, because I know tickets are starting to get a little scarce. The October 26th game, as we talked about, despite it being more than likely being a glorified preseason game, that game too, I think, is very close to being sold out. And then you got the Eastern Final. Like tickets are going to be going on sale for that very, very soon. I'm telling you, get yourself to Personal Molson Stadium, and I guarantee you're going to love it. If you haven't been and you just watch on TV, come see it live. You're going to love it, and you just might want to say, you know what, I want to be a part of this. Put me down for 2025. I'm in.
And worst comes to worst, just call the Alouettes or go over to their website at goowlsgo.com for tickets. They'll be able to explain more information, but all the perks are listed there. So, um, there's a reason why I've been a season ticket holder for as long as I have. It's very reasonable. Considering where my seats are located, they're very reasonable, but very reasonably priced, even with a slight increase. So, yeah. There's no game this week. Obviously, they will be back to work. It's gonna be a late week for them because they probably won't get back to work. Trying to do my math here real quick. Probably until Wednesday
Mm,
of next week. If I'm doing my mathing, if I'm mathing my math properly,
mhm,
I think it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. To get a full, yeah, I think it'll be Wednesday. They'll do it Wednesday, I think. But stay tuned. The information will be available shortly, obviously.
yeah, I mean, if nothing else, hopefully, like any nagging injuries or any things that are just not 100%, like this is what this extended bit of time, so to speak, is going to be what's needed to help get this team back on track, get them right, at least physically and hopefully mentally as well. Because yeah, these next three games don't change anything in the standings. Like, I mean, the Alouettes are going to be in first place no matter what. Even if they lose all three of these games, they're still going to be in first place. That's a guarantee. They're guaranteed to be playing at Personal Wilson Stadium on November 9th for the Eastern Final. That is a guarantee.
Yeah.
But you still want to finish the season strong if you're the Montreal Alouettes. You still want to show that you're not coasting. You want to show that you're not, on the downward turn. Like you want to come back, especially for this Thanksgiving Day against Ottawa, reestablish yourself as the reigning, defending, undisputed Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes, and then go to BC Place. And hey, not for nothing, Tim, the Toronto Argonauts and the Hamilton Tiger Cats, both Eastern teams who have to contend with the same fly over three time zones to go play the BC Lions, they did it and they won. So in theory, there's nothing stopping the Montreal Alouettes from doing that again, despite the trials and tribulations that they've had in playing BC Place. Who knows? Maybe this year it's just a little bit different. Who knows? Anything is possible. And then to play that last home regular season home game against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It may be a glorified preseason game, but there are still people that are going to have something to prove. There are still guys that want to show that they belong on this team, and you could be looking at the future as a result as well. So they're going to get an opportunity to showcase what they can do against Winnipeg, who will more than likely be in the same boat as the Montreal Alouettes, just playing this game because they have to, and maybe sending out their practice squad and seeing what their future superstars could do. I mean, anything can happen. That's the beauty of the Canadian Football League, is that anything can happen. So we could end up with 3 really good games or 3 lousy games. What will it be? Only one way to find out, folks. You got to tune in. You got to get your tickets. You got to be a part of this.
Exactly. We will be back next week, obviously, to talk about the upcoming game. Maybe we'll have a special guest. I know there's a couple things we're probably working on. And stay tuned to our socials for any information concerning the second annual fan meetup on Thanksgiving Monday. But it should be fun. It should be fun. So far, weather. I'll leave it at that. Weather. Dot dot dot. Maybe. Uh,
It'd be nice.
don't want
It'd be really
to.
nice.
Yeah, I know. I tell you. So, we will be back next week. And we appreciate everybody who's joined us for the episode. So for everybody here at Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on final approach.